welcome to the deep dive. Our mission here is to take the most complex, layered source material, the kind that requires a flowchart the size of a billboard just to follow the timeline, and distill it into pure, actionable knowledge.
In today's source material, it takes us into a universe where reality isn't a constant. It's a deliberately engineered, deeply fragile artifice.
A fragile artifice, I like that. We're diving into a world where history is rewritten by accident, where queens rule by, I guess you'd call it the law of the lion, and where the planet itself is the result of a 19-fold starship catastrophe.
Exactly. Our specific mission for this deep dive is to connect two wildly separated narratives. On one hand, you have the story of Rigg. He's a boy with this secret ability to see the literal footsteps of the past.
And on the other, thousands of years earlier, you've got Ram Odin, a starship pilot dealing with a catastrophic failure.
So we need to unify these timelines, understand the mechanics of the time travel, and, uncover the secrets of these mysterious, invisible barriers they call the walls.
We're basically synthesizing sources that detail the life of Rigg, who's a potential royal heir, in Ram Odin's cosmic journey. We want to understand how their two stories, separated by millennia and dimensions, are, at their core, intertwined.
And it all starts for us in this little backwoods village, Fall Ford, where Rigg believes he's just the simple son of a trapper until, his entire world is violently shattered.
That shattering moment is the death of the man he calls father. He's crushed beneath a massive, inexplicable fallen tree. It's a tragedy, of course, but it immediately forces Rigg to confront this philosophical foundation of his life that father gave him.
Right, that quote. No one can know a false thing. One can only believe it with certainty until it is contradicted.
And the biggest contradiction, the one that kicks everything off, is tied directly to his own secret.
His ability, path-seeing. He can look at any location and see the paths left by living things, people, animals, birds, and the sources describe them as bright and clear and fresh in the air.
But the path of the man who raised him, the man crushed by that tree,
it's invisible. It simply doesn't exist. And that is the initial paradox that just launches his entire journey.
Okay, so let's unpack this first incredible talent. Path-seeing or path-finding. This isn't just, advanced tracking. It sounds like Rigg is reading some kind of residual temporal energy.
It's much deeper than tracking. The rules are incredibly precise, which suggests there's a fundamental mechanism to this world, which is called garden.
Okay.
So when Rigg sees a path, he sees this complete, highly detailed residue of movement. It's like a temporal footprint. He can instantly extract the gender of the person who made it, their approximate age, even their intention.
Their intention. So like if they were scared or in a hurry.
Exactly. Were they running in fear? Were they walking with purpose? How fast were they going? He gets all of that just from looking at this shimmering line in the air.
And critically, the act of seeing it's not visual in the way you and I think of it.
Yeah.
The sources are really clear that he can sense paths behind obstacles.
That's a huge point. He senses paths through solid stone walls or over hills he can't see. And this implies his gift isn't based on light or, traditional perception. It has to be a direct connection to some kind of temporal or spatial signature that's imprinted on the environment.
So it bypasses physical barriers entirely.
Yeah.
The world for him is just a continuous temporal record.
Yes. But what really stands out, and what I think is the most mind-bending part of it, is the physics of it all. The spatial stability.
You mean how the paths don't just fly off into space?
Exactly. Planets are spinning, they're orbiting, they're hurtling through the galaxy at incredible speeds. Yet, Rigg's paths remain absolutely fixed to the physical location on the ground of Garden.
Okay, so how does he explain that? Because that's a huge leap.
It is. And it's the first conceptual jump Rigg makes that elevates his ability from just a neat survival skill to, deep physics.
Yeah.
He figures that for the path to stay fixed to the ground, no matter how the planet moves, that temporal residue must be intrinsically bound to the largest available gravitational field.
The planet itself.
The planet itself. So the path is held in place by the mass of Garden. Time and gravity in this universe aren't just related concepts, they are absolutely tethered.
Wow. So the path isn't a record in space. It's a record in the local space-time that the planet's gravity well creates.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that hypothesis is so essential because it sets up the later concept that the planet itself is a constructed entity. It's a massive artificial anchor for their reality.
Which brings us right back to the biggest anomaly, the blind spot. The man Rigg called father leaves no path at all.
And if he were a normal human, his path should be as clear as anyone else's. Family connection shouldn't matter.
So Rigg starts to reason this out. Initially, he thinks, okay, Father is human, the tree falling was a real event, he can see the path of the tree falling, it glows bright blue, and it's only a few hours old.
But if he accepts his vision is reliable, which it always has been, then the complete absence of a human path means the man he knew was never, in a biological or temporal sense, truly alive or human.
And that contradiction just sits there, unsolved, for a huge part of the journey. But the absence of that path is really the story's great foreshadowing element.
It is. And then we introduce Umbo, Rigg's friend and traveling partner, who just happens to possess the perfect complementary talent: direct time manipulation.
This is where things get really wild. Umbo's power.
Mm.
It's fascinating because the sources treat it as a subjective experience.
Right. He doesn't just make people faster. He changes the time flow around them. He can slow down time for the world, or he can speed up the mind of a specific person, like Rigg.
So to the person being affected, the whole world just seems to move in slow motion, letting them perceive and react at impossible speeds.
And it's almost described as regenerative.
Right.
People he uses it on say they feel younger, fresher, less tired. It's not just a cognitive boost, it's a physical rejuvenation.
Which suggests that physical fatigue might be directly correlated to how fast time is flowing. So by speeding up someone's inner clock, Umbo is basically giving them a long rest in a much shorter period of outside time.
It's a fascinating idea. And this combination, Rigg's path-seeing and Umbo's time dilation, it leads to the accidental but world-changing event, the first real time travel scene.
This is the pivotal moment. This is where the true rules of their universe are just laid bare.
Yeah. Rigg and Umbo's power is active, and they're crossing a river. Because they're accelerated, they start to perceive the past overlapping with the present.
It's like a temporal echo.
Exactly. And Rigg sees this spectral but tangible man struggling to save a drowning boy in the river. And on impulse, he intervenes. He physically grapples with the man from the past, prying his hand off a rock to help him.
A direct physical alteration of a past event. So what are the consequences for the present?
Immediate and total. For everyone except Rigg, the man he touched and helped is instantly woven into the tapestry of history. He becomes the revered wandering saint.
So a legend is born.
Instantly. A prominent shrine appears in the present, dedicated to commemorating the exact events Rigg just caused. History changes in a flash.
But Rigg remembers the original timeline. He remembers a world where that shrine never existed. How is his memory insulated from that temporal shift?
Because he's the agent of change. The sources suggest that once Umbo initiates the shift, the past changes for everybody else. They just seamlessly adopt the new history, new memories, the whole thing. The shrine was always there. The saint's legend was always known.
But Rigg, because he performed the action, retains the memory of how it used to be. He becomes this singular temporal anomaly holding the blueprint of the old reality in his mind.
So everyone else is essentially, their memories are overwritten to align with the new reality, but the person who made the change is immune.
That makes Rigg incredibly dangerous, not just powerful.
Yeah.
He's the only one who knows what history should be.
And he has tangible proof. You can't forget the knife, the jeweled knife he brought back from that past encounter.
Oh, right. It's this lavish, finely crafted object that did not exist in his world before that jump.
Its physical presence in his present is concrete evidence. It proves the time travel was real and the alteration was physical. If the shift had only been in people's minds, the knife would have vanished, but it stayed.
Which raises a huge question about control. A power like that, it could destroy everything. We're told Umbo was trained by the man Rigg called Father, the Wandering Man.
He was, and the method is surprisingly grounded. It's almost like a form of neuro-linguistic programming. Father understood that to master the flow of time, Umbo needed absolute voluntary control over every single impulse.
And the trainee started with wiggling his ears.
Wiggling his ears. It's a delightful detail, but it's a perfect encapsulation of the scientific rigor hidden in this story. Umbo had to focus intensely, practicing smiling and unsmiling, trying to isolate those specific, usually involuntary muscles.
It was about reinforcing neural pathways, consciously commanding a muscle group he never used, and that discipline translated to controlling a temporal field.
Exactly. And you see how difficult this is when Umbo tries to apply the power to himself.
Right, he struggles with that.
Massively. The sources describe it perfectly. Using the power on others is like swinging a sword at an enemy. It's easy, it's direct. But using it on himself is like trying to use a long sword to stab himself.
The proximity, the self-reference, it creates this huge cognitive barrier. It seems like temporal change is just easier when the observer and the observed are two different things.
It forces him to get creative later on, but for now, it's a major limitation.
So the moment Rigg leaves that river, the story just shifts dramatically. He goes from using these, cosmic level powers to playing high-stakes political chess and finance.
And that transition is only possible because of his father's relentless, calculated training, even while they were living in that remote village of Fallford.
This is the first big reveal about Rigg's childhood, isn't it?
It is. His father, the Wandering Man, who we later learn is a machine-trained Rigg, not just in trapping and survival, but in high finance, rhetoric, languages, and science.
This wasn't training for the woods.
Not at all. It was training specifically for the sophisticated, dangerous, urban environment he was about to enter. The father knew Rigg's royal destiny, even if Rigg had no idea.
And so Rigg is sent off to the city of Aressesimo to find his mother, Hagia Sesamin. He's carrying a small fortune in jewels and a letter of credit. Let's ground this a bit in their economy. The denominations are strange.
They are. The currency is broken down into purses, glimmers, lights, and fens. The sources give us the ratios. 1 glimmer is 12 lights, and 1 light is 120 fens. It's complex, but the point is, Rigg is carrying enough wealth to influence a small government. This money is his first real tool of power.
And he uses it immediately. He executes this, banking masterclass with a Mr. Cooper in the city of Oa. He doesn't just ask for his money, he dictates the terms.
This scene is so important because it proves Rigg's education wasn't just theoretical. He's using the rhetoric his father taught him, practicing his delivery with shifting intent.
The sources mention that, right? He learned to deliver the same sentence multiple ways.
Yeah. Say the same thing, but now say it to someone you love. Say it now to make sure someone knows he is of a lower class. Rigg uses this command of his voice, his intonation, to project instant authority.
He also uses the physical space as a weapon.
Oh, absolutely. When he walks into Cooper's office, he subtly manipulates the furniture. He manages to slide Cooper's chair away, forcing this older, experienced banker to sit on a low stool while Rigg takes the higher, more dominant chair.
He completely reverses the power dynamic.
He does. He's basically asserting that he is not the supplicant here. The banker has to prove his worth to Rigg. And in that one negotiation, you see that this kid is absolutely ready for the political arena he's about to walk into.
And once he reaches the capital, Aressesimo, the political history just comes crashing down on him. He learns his full name is Rigg Sesamakash.
And that he's part of the Sesamoto family, who were deposed exactly 11,191 years earlier by the People's Revolutionary Council.
That specific number, 11,191 years. That's the second time we've seen a massive, very specific number. It's clearly a marker.
It's the marker. It ties his family's history directly to Ram Odin's cosmic history, which we'll get to. But in the immediate present, Rigg's identity makes him a walking political powder keg.
And the big players recognize this immediately. General Citizen, a key military figure, arrests him. But this isn't just a simple arrest.
No, it's a test. Citizen isn't loyal to the council. He represents a powerful faction that wants to overthrow the current government. By arresting Rigg, he's verifying if this kid is the legitimate male heir.
Because if he is, Citizen can use him.
Use him as a figurehead. Install Rigg as a puppet king with Citizen himself acting as the regent. The general wants power, and Rigg is his key to getting it legitimately.
And Rigg's response to this high-stakes interrogation is just. It's masterful. He uses the same rhetorical control he used on the banker, but amplified.
He maintains what the sources call an iron control of his voice. He doesn't let Citizen find any hint of fear or sarcasm, because that would allow the general to categorize him, to dismiss him.
The strategy is brilliant.
Yeah.
He weaponizes the council's own revolutionary rhetoric against them.
He does. The council's whole philosophy is built on speaking truth to power. So Rigg uses that as his shield. He openly talks about the threats against his life. He mentions the 2 known assassination attempts by the time he gets to the library, and he challenges Citizen to act according to the council's own ideals.
It's a trap. If this revolutionary council, which is founded on truth and equality, secretly kills the young heir who just dared to speak the truth about his own heritage,
their entire philosophy collapses. It locks Citizen and the council into a political dilemma. They can't afford to quietly get rid of the boy who just exposed their hypocrisy on their own terms.
This political chess game leads him finally to his mother, Hagia Sesamin. She's living under the so-called protection of a council operative, a man named Flocomo.
And Rigg is expecting, a tearful, protective reunion, but the sources signal danger immediately. He realizes very quickly that Flacomo is just a flunky, and this whole situation is incredibly precarious.
And here we also meet Rigg's sister, Karamsusaminka, and she has the third major time-based talent in the family.
Yes, Param's power is near invisibility through something called temporal rushing, and this is where the specific science of it gets really interesting.
How does it work exactly?
Param makes herself invisible by constantly leaping forward in time in these tiny, tiny increments. The sources give us the exact ratio. She exists in real time for only 1/1,000,000th of a second, and then she immediately jumps forward 1,000th of a second.
So she's blinking out of existence, but at an incredibly high frequency.
Yeah.
A millionth of a second on, a thousandth of a second on.
Right. Because she's physically present so rarely, the human eye just can't perceive her light reflection as a continuous thing. She becomes functionally invisible.
But she has to keep moving.
She has to. If she stops moving or stops actively making that temporal leap, she instantly reappears. So her normal state is just this constant, frantic movement to maintain her invisibility. It's an exhausting defense mechanism.
It also just highlights the genetic diversity of the Sessimoto family's time talents. Rigg sees the past, Umbo controls the flow of time, and Param controls her own presence in time.
And then comes the ultimate devastating betrayal. The source reveals that the greatest threat to Rigg isn't the council. It isn't General Citizen. It's his own mother, Hagia Sesamin.
This is the psychological core of Rigg's journey right here.
It is. Hagia Sesamin confirms this brutal law of the lion. She explains that in their family tradition, the new alpha, in her case, the queen, has to eliminate the cubs of the predecessor. Rigg, as the male heir, is a direct threat to her ability to hold power.
It doesn't matter if that power is symbolic or absolute. He's a threat just by existing.
And she proves how ruthless she is immediately. She confesses to Rigg that she personally killed the spy who was watching her room.
Why?
To make sure that when her planned assassins finally killed Rigg, the news wouldn't get back to the council. She needed Rigg's death to be untraceable back to her.
So Rigg wasn't separated from her because of some revolutionary plot. He was sent away by his father, the Expendable, to protect him from his own mother.
Yes, this just reframes the entire last 11,000 years of their family history. It's not just a political dynasty. It's a history of ritualistic, self-destructive violence. She tries to kill both Rigg and Param, reasoning that as the queen, their very existence makes her reign unstable.
Her logic is cold, but it's perfectly consistent with her philosophy.
It is, and it means Rigg's entire education, all that high-stakes training, was ultimately designed to save him from the woman who gave birth to him.
So if Rigg's story is about escaping this murderous political destiny, we now have to connect it to the absolute truth of their world. And that requires a jump, a big one, 11,191 years into the past, into deep space, to meet Ram Odin, the lone pilot of a starship.
This is where the science fiction becomes almost cosmic horror. It's this blend of planned colonization and catastrophic failure. Ram Odin was the sole waking human pilot on a colony ship. The mission: get to an Earth-like planet, Garden, 90 light years away, using a theoretical space-time fold jump.
Carrying the future of humanity.
The whole genetic future. And the jump worked, but the result was completely unexpected and, frankly, destabilizing to their entire understanding of physics.
What happened?
The ship successfully folded space, but when it emerged, it was physically reversed. Ram noticed that even though the engines were pushing the ship forward, its actual position was moving backward through space, accelerating back towards Earth.
It was moving backward in space, but forward in time.
It was in some kind of anti-time spatial condition, while Ram himself was still moving conventionally forward in subjective time. It was a paradox. And the ship's computers detected an astronomical cost to this failure.
Right, the energy cost was insane.
The computers calculated that the energy cost of the failure was 19 times the ship's mass. And this led Ram Odin to this massive, terrifying hypothesis. The mission didn't fail. It had succeeded 19 times at once.
The full jump created 19 identical copies of the ship.
Yes. And these copies weren't just created in space. They were all thrust backward 11,191 years in time.
At the exact moment of the jump.
To the moment of the jump, all now moving in opposite directions through time. Ram's ship is the one moving forward in subjective time, so he becomes what he calls the exhaust trail of the event. The other copies are invisible to each other, each in a slightly different temporal or spatial dimension.
And that single event explains the 11,191-year timeline that Rigg is living in. That was year zero, the colonization event.
And this brings us to Ram Odin's terrible choice. The final, catastrophic, but absolutely necessary act performed by those 19 colony ships. They weren't just left to drift.
They were used as planetary engineering tools.
Precisely. Ram and the ship's AIs, the Expendables, realized the only way to ensure humanity's survival on Garden was through a total controlled reset. So the 19 ships were aimed at Garden and impacted at pre-calibrated intervals and angles.
This wasn't an accident. It was a mass sacrifice.
It was, and the kinetic energy of those 19 impacts performed several key functions. First, it adjusted the planet's rotation and its tilt,
Slowing it down.
slowing its rotation down to just over 23 hours and creating a sufficient axial tilt to introduce seasons, which is critical for complex life to develop.
And function 2 was the extinction event itself.
The impacts pulverized the planet's crust, kicking up so much particulate matter into the atmosphere that it blocked the sunlight for decades. A necessary extinction event designed to wipe the slate clean.
And only after all that trauma was done, the ships deploy their real cargo.
The reseeding of the world with Earth life, ensuring humanity survived on a second custom-engineered world. So Rigg's world, with all its strange plants and its deep history, is the result of this meticulously planned catastrophe.
Which means the walls Rigg lives among and the 19 wall folds are directly related to this 19-ship crash.
They are. The Tower of O contains a globe that displays 19 separate enclosed landmasses on a single spherical world. Those are the 19 wall folds. And they represent the 19 distinct initial colonization sites. Each one is a localized environment created by the impact of one of those ships.
So what about the wall itself? The invisible, impenetrable barrier that evokes despair. What's its function?
The wall is a barrier designed to keep those 19 colonies genetically and politically separate, at least at the beginning. The despair it causes is an active field, a kind of psychotemporal manipulation.
So the closer animals or humans get.
The more they're overwhelmed by grief, despair, and sickness, which just naturally steers them away. It ensures isolation without needing armies or, physical fences.
But plants and seeds can pass through freely. That distinction seems really important.
It is. It connects back to the origin of life on the planet. Rigg's grandfather, Noso, he studied the wall. He noticed this duality of flora and fauna. He concluded that humans and advanced animals were sudden arrivals from another world, from Earth, a world that had advanced life faster because it had a large spherical moon creating powerful tides.
And Garden, presumably, didn't have that, so his native flora developed slowly, but its fauna was more primitive.
Exactly. The wall seems to distinguish between the life that's indigenous to Garden, like the plants, which can pass through, and the life introduced by the colonists, the fauna and humans, which are blocked and repelled.
Naso tried to cross, didn't he? And failed spectacularly.
He did. He tried to get around the psychological barrier by crossing it while unconscious, out at sea. But the moment his boat crossed the threshold, it sank instantly, and he went with it. Never seen again.
Mother mentioned that there was local speculation about water-dwelling creatures on the other side.
Right, which suggests the wall's defense is either the field itself or the environment beyond it is just actively lethal to non-native life.
This all sets the stage for the biggest reveal of all, about Rigg's father and the purpose of the Expendables. If the world was engineered, it was being maintained by machines.
And Rigg's path-seeing blind spot is finally explained. His father was an expendable and advanced machine, a robot created to serve the colonists, but their primary duty requires deception.
They have to pretend to die.
They're programmed to pretend to die from time to time, lest people notice that they do not age. They have no path for Rigg to see because they aren't biological life forms in the sense that his gift can register.
So Rigg's entire relationship, his love, his training, it was all orchestrated by a loving machine. And this expendable isn't just some local robot. It's communicating with the cosmic side of the story.
The expendable Rigg meets later confirms he's in communication with the copy of Ram Odin who survived the fold. This establishes the deep connection. The expendables on Garden are still following the command structure established by the original colonists. They're working to maintain the integrity of the 19 wall folds.
And that command structure itself is flipped. We learn that Rigg, Umbo, and Param are now potentially in command of these ancient machines.
It's a huge twist. The expendable reveals that command now belongs to the first humans to successfully pass through the wall. Because Rigg led Umbo and Param through, they now theoretically hold command over the expendables across all 19 colonies.
And there was another upgrade, wasn't there, from crossing the wall?
A massive one. The act of crossing granted them an unexpected gift. They now possess all languages ever spoken within the wall fold.
which suggests the wall is acting as a massive data repository, a knowledge transfer system connected to the original colonial memory.
The walls aren't just barriers, they are vast, invisible computers storing the entire history and linguistic archive of all the colonies. And Rigg's talent, the path-seeing, this was all planned for 11,000 years ago.
It was an essential genetic asset.
Yes. The expendable confirms that Rigg's time manipulation talent, passed down genetically, was seen as a valuable strain for humanity to preserve across the 19 colonies. It was to ensure temporal stability, maybe even future mastery over their universe. Rigg's birth, his training, his journey, it was all an orchestrated process to ensure this genetic asset was preserved and ultimately utilized.
The knowledge Rigg has now, that his life was orchestrated, his father was a machine, his mother's a murderer, it pushes him to immediate action. He has to escape the royal trap his mother set.
And his training immediately pays off. Rigg uses his pathfinding not to track people this time, but to track ancient history within the building itself.
How does that work?
He maps out the secret passages and design flaws of the royal house by following old paths left by library scholars who were fleeing turmoil centuries ago. He identifies a forgotten dumbwaiter that leads down into the city sewers and tunnels.
Their escape route.
Their immediate exit from the palace. But to escape the city itself, with general citizens locked down and the growing mobs, they have to rely on Umbo's time ability. They plan one final massive time jump into the past.
This is a huge gamble. They had to test the mechanics first, right?
Yeah.
With the carriage?
A quick necessary test. They just got in a carriage to transport everyone. So they use Umbo's power, jump the carriage back in time a little bit, let go of it, then jump forward to their starting point.
And the carriage is gone. It stayed in the past.
Which confirms their theory. Large, non-living things can be time transferred if you're holding on to them during the jump. It proves the physical manipulation of time affects matter just as much as people.
But Rigg realizes this jump isn't a round trip. This is an irrevocable choice.
The rules of his own talent prohibit it. Rigg figures that once they fully enter the past, they can't return to their original future or their present. His pathfinding only lets him see paths that have been made.
So from their new spot in the past, their original future hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. The path forward goes dark. He can't navigate back. They would be committing to an entirely new timeline.
So instead of risking that, they decide on a more immediate and frankly more terrifying objective. Crossing the wall into a new wall fold. The thing Naso died trying to do.
They need a guide. Something native enough to garden that the wall won't just kill it, but something that still leaves a path they can follow. They choose this very faint old path left by a unique, feathered, forward-eyed animal. It's a small plant-eater, smaller than a deer, and they learn from Nosa's mistake and choose a dry land route.
The crossing itself sounds like a nightmare. Just a combination of physical and psychological trauma.
It is absolute agony. They have to physically cling to this animal's path, forcing the creature to trot to guide them across the invisible boundary. First, it's just severe physical pain from the animal's sharp, barbed feathers. But that's nothing compared to the psychological assault from the wall's field.
What does that trauma actually feel like for them?
As the field envelops them, they're hit by this overwhelming grief, despair, and a sense of absolute hopelessness. This is the anti-fauna defense mechanism at its strongest. It's designed to break your will, to make you turn back.
And Rigg, despite his iron will, is finally overcome by it.
He is. He falls into this choking dust cloud right near the border, which leads to this incredible moment of loyalty from their companions, Loaf and Olivenko.
The old soldier and the guard who escaped with them.
It's the ultimate test of their character. They've already made it through the worst of the psychological torment, but they willingly turned back. Back into the agony, back into that despair field, just to drag Rigg across the boundary line. Their loyalty saves him. It confirms their commitment to Rigg is greater than their own survival or sanity.
They succeed. They emerge in a new, uncatalogued wall fold. And it's a different one from where Naso died, which suggests the 19 zones have a complex spatial arrangement.
And here they meet another expendable who confirms everything. This second machine synthesizes the entire story for them. It confirms the truth about Rigg's father and the larger purpose of Rigg's journey.
The genetic preservation of his time-manipulating ability.
It wasn't chance, it was design. A design to ensure this unique strain of temporal manipulation survived the trauma of the colonization and was preserved across the 19 colonies.
And the final revelation is just chilling. The expendable explains this genetic imperative, basically viewing Rigg's talent as a commodity, something to be distributed and preserved for the greater good of humanity's future self-mastery over time.
Rigg and his talents are not just a quirk of birth. They are the living legacy of Ram Odin's terrifying choice, a carefully cultivated asset maintained by advanced machines for over 11,000 years. And their successful crossing of the wall and getting all those languages, it solidifies their role as potential leaders who can finally synthesize these fragmented human colonies.
Okay, let's synthesize this monumental deep dive.
hmm
We started with a boy tracking rabbits, and we ended with a grand cosmic design where the entire universe they know is founded on a planned catastrophe. The starship impacts were a required extinction event just to create a sustainable second world.
And that new world is maintained by machines, the expendables, who have to feign being human to protect the genetic diversity of 19 isolated human colonies, all kept apart by these invisible walls that are both psychological barriers and apparently vast data storage systems.
The history Rigg knew was essentially a long, complex holding pattern.
It was. Which brings us back to that ultimate question of choice versus destiny, free will versus a pre-programmed outcome. Rigg's entire life, his education, his journey, it was all orchestrated by the expendable who loved him, trained to escape this exact moment.
The machine's script was pretty clear. Save the air, preserve the gene.
Yet, Rigg and Umbo used their unique, non-chosen talents. Umbo's power, Rigg's pathfinding, not just to follow that plan, but to actively thwart a destiny that was set by a murderous queen and a manipulative government. They forced their way through the wall, choosing an unknown future over a certain predetermined death.
So they didn't just follow the instructions, they demonstrated that their innate, genetically engineered power could be turned to serve their own unpredictable human agency. They forced their own path.
And here is where the implications of their repeated, localized time travel become truly profound on a cosmic scale. I mean, think about it. Rigg and Umbo have already shown that even a minor action in the past, just prying a hand off a rock, instantly creates an unshakable historical myth, a dedicated religious shrine that millions immediately believe was always there.
It makes you wonder about the ethical scale of their new power. Now that they have mastery over their talents and they have command over the expendables across 19 colonies, what happens if Rigg and Umbo decide to intentionally use their power to change history on a massive fundamental scale?
What if they used Umbo's power, combined with Rigg's path-seeing, to go back to the moment of Ram Odin's initial fold jump? Could they stop the catastrophic 19-ship impact that created their entire world? Or what if they just altered the outcome of the Sessamoto dynasty 11,000 years ago?
And would the world they jump back to even remember the original history? Or would the new reality just snap into place, with only Rigg and Umbo holding the dangerous, isolated memory of the world that used to be? That's the ultimate burden of the agent of temporal change in this universe.
The cost of knowing you can change the past is the absolute burden of remembering what the present used to be, a truth known only to the two young men who now hold the future of 19 worlds in their hands. It's something profound to consider long after we finish this deep dive.
Indeed. We'll leave you with that thought. The most terrifying power isn't the ability to change the future. It's the certainty that you are the only one who knows what the past really was.